All right, so we're going to pick up again with 3. We already covered this here, so don't worry about what's going on with that. We already covered it in the previous video. I've got a little bit out of control with my X out there. All right, so we're just going to start with 3 here. Right, so again, our situation here is we have Don, who works for a hair salon, who charges a fee for a station. He's responsible for buying his own scissors and trimmer. They pay him an hourly rate of 15 plus tips. He reports income and work-related expenses on a federal 1040 Schedule C, which is self-employment. Is he employer or private contractor? Well, this is kind of the thing that gives it away right there. As soon as you see somebody filling out Schedule C, they're not an employee, they're a contractor. Now, if we were, if instead of his income being reported this way is being reported by us to the federal government, we would start to think, even though he has some work-related expenses, that he's an employee. But once you cross that line over to Schedule C, you're definitely a private contractor at that point. Now, again, what's one of the things you have to worry about as a private contractor is you'll have to pay something called self-employment tax, which is basically Social Security and Medicare taxes for the self-employed. In other words, remember how like employers have to pay a matching amount, so you'll have to pay in for yourself, and you also have to pay in as an employer, and then it's weird, they let you deduct what you paid as an employer because it's like an expense of doing business. I don't know, if you ever go that route, you'll see what I mean when you're having to fill that out, if you ever have to fill out Schedule C. All right, now Part 4. Again, Michelle works at Home Harbor for $11 an hour. Her timesheets indicate that last week she worked 43 hours and 47 in the current week, so we want to compute her wages for the upcoming biweekly payroll. So for that, again, so she worked a total of 80 hours at the regular rate of $11, and there's a total of what? 10 overtime hours, 3 for the previous week, 7 for this week. So those are going to be at 1.5 times 11, so $1,650. Add all that together, her payroll, again, the gross amount of payroll here would be $1,045. Now, if she goes from 3 to 2 allowances on her W-4, does that increase or decrease federal taxes withheld? This is a little bit of a trick question. It's the same because allowances are no longer factored into federal withholding for now. Again, this might change in in the future, but for now, this is the standard that we're abiding. All right, for number 5, again, we're going to look at some summary data for Value Incorporated's payroll register. And again, so we have just the usual information you would expect to compile from that. Current wages and salaries, current Social Security wages and salaries, current unemployment insurance wages and salaries, federal taxes, withheld, health insurance, and union dues. So the first thing we're going to figure here is how much in Social Security. Oh, I got one of those weird artifacts again, but it didn't cover anything up this time, so it's all right. So how much should they deduct from that gross? And that's going to be at a 6.2% rate. So just take 125, that's the important number, times 6.2%, and that's going to be $7,750. What about Medicare taxes? Okay, that's again assuming the 145 rate and nobody owes the additional 0.9. It's going to be based on this number here. Remember, there's no ceiling for that. There is a ceiling for Social Security, so that means that some of the employees that you're dealing with here had hit that ceiling. They're above it, so you're not collecting on it anymore. So it's going to be 145 of that, so you should get 150,000 times 1.45%, so $2,175. And again, how much unemployment taxes should Value pay? And again, that's going to be based on this number here. Again, this tends to be a low number because remember, the ceiling is only $7,000. Right? So only $16,000 of that total is going to be applied. So it's going to be $16,000 times, again, the federal rate is 0.6%. So only $96 will be subtracted for that, and 5.4 for the state rate. So it's going to be $16,000 at 5.4, so $864 there. So first step we're going to complete here is complete the employee payroll entry, and that's the one that's a little bit more complicated. So again, the pieces that we have here are whatever this number is always going to be your base debit to wages and salaries expense. So that's going to be your one. Usually that's your one debit. That's it. Everything else is a bunch of credits to various payables. In this case, I simplified it a little bit by making the bottom thing not a credit to some sort of a interim payable, but just directly to cash. So remember, federal taxes were $28,500, so you should see a credit for that. Social Security that we calculated in A, $7,750 should be there. We just calculated there for Medicare should be included as well, Medicare payable. Health insurance contributions I gave at $7,000. Union dues at $1,500. So those are both amounts that are just givens. So subtract all of these elements here from our 150, and we get a net amount remitted to our employees of $103,075. Now that's step one. The other step was we got to figure out what the the employer payroll entry looks like. Remember, that one is going to be what? Matching Social Security, matching Medicare, and then we also have to book what else? The unemployment. So there'll be a total of 5 lines here. Right, so the best way to do is just backward engineer it. So this is all the amounts that we have to include as our payables. So again, just to recap, so federal unemployment, $96,864 for state, so we included both of those numbers, good to go. And then these are just the matching amounts for Social Security and Medicare, $7,750, $2,175 for Medicare. Add all that together, and you'll get payroll tax expense of $10,885. And lastly, we just have one other thing here. Again, this homework goes kind of fast. And just so you understand, whatever I'm giving you in this homework, I'm not asking you to do anything more complicated than this in terms of like what you'll be tested on. So it'll be of a comparable level there. So some of the stuff I go into the rigors of some of the stuff in this material, definitely dealing with the payroll. Not going to see it on an exam. So if you could handle this, then you're good to go. All right, so lastly, we're going to deal with collecting sales taxes. So Harriet's Boutique is going to sell $2,000 in goods in store to customers who pay with credit cards. She's located in a place with a very frugal 6% sales tax, and she has a merchant account that's going to charge her 3% for running credit cards, and there's a 3-day waiting period where they deposit to her account. So we're going to factor all these things slowly but surely. First of all, what's the amount of sales tax you should charge? 2,000 at 6% should be $120. Okay, so that's kind of your beginning there. And how much should the credit card expense be? So remember, for that, it's going to be the amount of the sale, $2,000 plus the sales taxes of $120, so $2,120. That's where I'm getting that from, at 3%. So we should see a subtraction of $63.60 for that. So we're going to prepare the journal entry. Let's do my little check marks there. All right, so the journal entry here should look like so. So again, the sale is going to be for the $2,000 that was stipulated. Sales taxes payable for the amount we calculated. We just calculated the amount of credit card expense, $63.60. So subtract that from the $2,120, and your debit to accounts receivable for credit cards should be $2,056.40. Remember, we have to put it in here because why? Because I got to wait 3 days before they get paid. So 3 days passes, and then this is the entry that they'll book. Then they'll book. Ooh, I'll get an arrow there. So we'll book that. So cash debit, accounts receivable, credit card company credit for the same $2,056.40. And again, that concludes the 7th set of homework there. Like I said, it does go kind of quickly for this one. And again, if you understood what was going on here, you should be good to go for whatever that will be tested on with regard to this chapter. So it's not going to be any more rigorous than that. This, I promise. So again, I guess bye for now.